Welcome again to our sixth webinar from Malleshwaram Katte Mato. This is all in the COVID series. And Malleshwaram Katte Mato is brought to you by MUL, that is Malleshwaram Urban Living Lab, which is a collaboration between Malleshwaram Social and Sensing Local. As many of you know, Malleshwaram Social is a community group which works both on strengthening community ties and on bettering the civic communities within this area. And Sensing Local is an organization which is working extensively on urban issues like public health and environment. And the Malleshwaram Urban Living Lab is a collaboration where we hope to sort of synergize our respective advantages and strengths so that we can sort of try to look at bringing some positive and effective solutions within this area. And the Katte Mato is the weekly webinar where we discuss, like you do on a Katte, the various critical issues that worry us and for which we require some solutions, but in a collaborative manner, which is one of the biggest I should say, the backbone of a urban living lab, that it's an open, inclusive, and collaborative manner of working. The framework is like that, and the webinars provide a sort of a platform for us to discuss this, so that then it is taken as sort of into forces, and we try to look for actual solutions on the ground. So during the webinar, we try and get on board the various people who are very either experts or are working in the you know areas on which we are looking at, the area which we are focusing on in that particular webinar, which is today's is on managing waste during COVID-19. And I'll hand over to Sobia to introduce our panel and take this forward.
Yes, great. Hi everyone, welcome on this Saturday evening, discussing about waste management issues. I know a lot of people who have joined us are extremely passionate about it, have been working several years on this issue, and now suddenly we have this new challenge of COVID times, which is posing, making us see different types of waste coming to the forefront, making us see the increase in our disposable single-use plastics. So I think ending down to the reason also why we wanted to get this webinar going, the reason became that as a community, we also thought that there were some certain issues that were underlying, which were still not resolved by the policies that are in place. But as well as sort of looking into the aspect that there were a few things that we as a community can do and can start mobilizing. And I think that's where the whole discussion started. So we've divided this webinar into three parts. Part one is where we will be talking about the general aspect of research, right? What is happening around the world? What is this changing nature of waste we're talking about? What are these streams? What are the policies in place that CPCB has put together, that there is a pollution control board has put together, and the municipality, that's BBMP, has put together, and sort of to move into then understanding what is happening in wards 45 and 65. Those are the two wards that we're covering as a part of Malleshwaram. I think a lot of people here, even if you all are from different wards, may resonate with the same challenges that 45 and 65 is undergoing. And then we move into our panel discussion. The panel discussion actually goes about two main questions. One is, how can we curb this growing problem of COVID-infected waste as generators? We being generators of it, how can we start curbing that problem? And also, as a community, what can we start doing about it? And the second part of this panel discussion is, how do we help protect our waste workers? So our panelists are Odette, and I'll introduce them in detail when we start the panel discussion. is Odette, Shweta, and Pinky Chandra for our first question that we're answering. We have Shakila Banu and Shweta again. This is a different Shweta from Ward 177, and Vishwanath and Inda from Hasirudala, who's also representing how we can protect our waste workers. So I'll just get started off. Coming to the changing nature of waste. So as we all know, and this is, we have all sort of seen, we have an increase in masks and gloves which were usually seen in the biomedical space, but now is suddenly being seen in our day-to-day household sort of waste that's coming about. And if they are not managed soundly, and this I also remember that I think the first quarantine set of instructions that came about, and the instruction given was either burn it or bury it in your house. That was the instruction given by the municipality. And I think we have come a long way from that. But if we do not manage this waste soundly, it can lead to several issues from a health perspective itself, whether they are thrown on the road, whether they end up in our dry waste collection centers, or if they are burnt. All of them pose a health risk, both to the environment as well as personally. The challenge, however, is what also has been suggested overall is that we need to start looking at our existing systems. We need to ensure that the operations that we set aside are continued to be followed. So we continue to do a system or follow the system that we have, but how can we add in and improvise? And we also, in the absence of any technology, you have to focus on the 3 S's, which is basically how do I sort, segregate, and store, which are becoming more and more important in the entire aspect of how do I deal with this waste. And rightly pointed by ISWA. ISWA is the International Solid Waste Management Association. If as households and commercial establishments, we now stop recycling and we stop segregating our waste, we will again go back several years from that entire effort that we have actually put together, which will end up overloading our landfills, which we don't have enough of anyway. So I think it's very important for us to start thinking of this, saying that if we are saying a COVID house actually has to send the waste to the landfill instead of it going to the composting yard, there are going to be challenges as the cases also increase. As I think all of us sort of know and have seen, PPE has increased, and increased not only for our health workers who are the frontline workers, but also for waste workers, also for officials, police that are actually going to these houses that are COVID infected, inspecting it. As well as when we come to our people in home quarantine caretakers, they are all using this PPE and using these N95 masks, which are all one-time use products, right? So we are seeing that increase that's coming aside from in the medical forefront of for medical professionals. Coming to the increase in use of disposables, that's another important aspect, because the growing thing of saying that it's a disposable, it's a one-time use, and hence it's safer, which has also been a huge thing that has changed. People are ordering a lot more online. I think even the increase of plastic bags has returned, which I think took a lot of effort in terms of banning, but now we see them all back in the market with a vengeance. So this has been another issue that's increasing in the city. So what exactly is this waste, right? That's also getting contaminated. That's our domestic waste. So in our waste now, we are finding all this is at our household level, right? So we've got the masks, we've got PPEs, we've got tissues, swabs, syringes, anything that, because people are getting treated at home as well. We've got COVID infected wet waste. We've got COVID infected dry waste, but they are separate categories, but they are touched by a COVID patient. And we have obviously the increase in single-use plastic. The important thing, and this is a very interesting paper someone had written on looking at or classifying what is it and what does this mean? Like, how is this going to impact? Almost like a projection on saying that, okay, these are the things that may happen. So if I look at it, there is biodegradable and there's recyclable. This is something we are already aware of. But there is hazardous and there's infectious waste. So how are these meant to be disposed of? And these are not norms that we're following, but this is just a paper that sort of put together on what can it mean and where do we head towards and what all can we leverage. So it does say that we should segregate and we should continue to segregate it, but keep it in stored bags. And I'm not going to propagate anything, but this is just to say the messages that are going around, right? The other thing, recyclable waste, one important factor that's been raised here is keep it for longer periods of time. If you are in a COVID infected household, another with hazardous has to be stored in a separate type of bag. And I think this separate type of bag is an important one because it will come again, it will move forward as a thing even in the rules and the norms that are there. The third thing on collection, it will require an increase in number of vehicles and frequency of collection. So this is also important to understand, which is not necessarily taken in at this moment, even with the city, saying that, okay, this is going to impact an extra vehicle coming into our entire collection system. It could be even as a compactor, or it could be a primary waste collection system. The last thing on the treatment, I think a few of these. So if you see incineration, deep burial, steam sterilization, these are new for us in terms of us looking at household waste, but in terms of biomedical waste, these are not new processes. Biomedical waste goes through incineration, goes through steam sterilization, which is your autoclaving, which is now already there. The city already has capacity for it. So I think it's an important thing to look at that as an outset treatment process, apart from composting and biomethanation and all these other processes. So how long does this actually stay, right? How long does it stay on each of these materials? And these are some common materials that have been put out in WHO. We weren't able to find anything for wet waste per se. If anybody does know in the group, please do share it. But what you see is plastic is 3 days. Cardboard is 24 hours. Disposable gowns is 24 hours. This is how long the virus lives. So I think it's important for us also to dwell a little more to understand if it is 3 days, which means I need to keep aside my dry waste if it has plastic and if it's been touched by a COVID positive patient for at least 3 days before it's given out to prevent the danger. If I'm talking about disposable gowns in PPE material, it has to be left aside for 24 hours. And that is the bare minimum that has been suggested so that we don't put the workers at risk if they come in contact with it, even by mistake. A similar thing of what we tried to put together is what is happening world over, right? So what is WHO said, what is EU saying about it, what is Italy saying about it, what is US saying about it? And we'll move to what India is doing about it. So I think the important thing of designated containers or designated bags or separate bags that are secured has been a common messaging throughout the different countries that is there. Some of them have said disposal on site is recommended, but segregation is not recommended. Some have said no special collection required, but it can be secured and put it in unsorted garbage, which means it goes directly to the landfill. Other places it says it's collected itself, which is what Italy is doing, is where it's collected by a designated company that collects the residual waste. So it's a separate end process itself, which it is being taken for, and the collection is by a separate entity. Coming to now the CPCB guidelines, and I think it's looking at this, CPCB has put together guidelines, and this is the latest one that has come about. Basically, it has looked at home quarantine, isolation. It has looked at guidelines for ULBs and in terms of disposing of PPE material. So if we look at it, the guidelines has given also a do's and a don'ts, which is interesting to sort of take as a first layer of reference point, at least for us. So if we look at general solid waste, it says it needs to be collected in bags, again, securely tied and handed over to MSW collectors. That's our waste collectors. This is the general solid waste, which includes your kitchen waste, packaging materials. So your wet and your dry waste is what is included in this. Coming to biomedical waste. Now, biomedical waste is your PPE, masks, all of that come in the biomedical waste. They are meant to be collected in yellow bags, which are suitable for biomedical waste collection. And this comes back to the point of what was also raised at WHO's level to say that there are separate kind of bags with a different lining to collect these. And these are bags that need to be provided by the collector itself. And hence, the disposal method that has been suggested is handing over these bags to authorized waste collectors. and deposit it in the yellow bags at a designated deposition center, which is meant to be established by the ULB. And we will come to this point because I think it's a very important point. And this is then handed over to the waste collector who's engaged for handling biomedical waste. Sorry. Yeah. And the other important aspect has been about the spraying of disinfectant, which means the waste bag needs to be sprayed when the collector is going to collect it. The vehicle, after cleaning, also after it's sort of picked up the waste and gone and disposed it off, also needs to be sprayed. And the place at which it is all stored also needs to be sprayed. And I think this is an important factor for us also to remember as we are also pushing our own ULBs, the health inspectors and ward officials to move into ensuring that they practice this. The disposal of used PPEs has been said that it should be kept in a paper bag for a minimum of 72 hours. This is what has been set by the CPCB guidelines as well. And material recovery facilities that get these can shred and send it to the appropriate authorities for recycling. This is the ones that have some plastic component in it. But the 72-hour guideline still holds fit for that. As well as the ones that are used by healthcare workers accompanying the diseased bodies of COVID patients in the crematorium and graveyards has to be treated as biomedical waste because there's a potential of high infection. Coming to, so this is what CPCB has sort of covered. Coming to what the BBMP notification says, this is the notification for on the 14th that was put out. It says that an AEE, and if that's basically your assistant executive engineer, this is the person who is responsible for solid waste management at the division level, or your constituency level, which is basically a set of 7 to 8 wards. So you have an AEE, and then you have health inspectors, which are there in every ward. So the AEE is responsible to provide all your waste workers from the health inspector to then going down to the auto driver about the home isolation households. This is meant to be done on a daily basis. Existing autos, from the existing autos, they are allowed to deploy one auto for collection from COVID positive households. And these guys are meant to be given PPE equipment. This is both the auto driver as well as the helper who helps carrying that waste. The yellow bags has again come into mention here, saying that the yellow bags has to be supplied by the agency that has been entrusted to take on this waste, which is this biomedical waste. The collected waste shall be stored on ward division quarantine centers. Now, this has been an important thing because it was also mentioned in CPCB guidelines. Where this center exists in each ward is still unknown. And I think it's important to know that every ward has to have a place where it can store this waste that is collected. Ensuring sanitization of vehicles after each trip is another important aspect. And training to be given to waste collectors on how they are meant to do this, which is another very important aspect. Similarly, the PPE kits to be supplied on a daily basis. This is what the notification says. It comprises of 3 parts, basically the layered mask, hand gloves, goggles, and the reusable full body gown. And it mentions reusable, and I think we'll get that answer also through the conversation. Waste handlers must undergo thermal screening before and after work. If this is happening or not, we're not entirely sure. At the time of waste pickup, handlers should maintain a minimum distance of 1 to 3 meters. This is another aspect as well. PPE used by waste handlers should be treated as biomedical waste. So that whatever PPE that they are wearing to collect from the COVID waste household has to be sent with biomedical waste. And of course, there's an aspect to say that if a waste worker does fall sick, he or she should be able to undergo medical examination, and paid leaves can be sanctioned. So the photos that you're seeing on the right-hand side, actually, we have got them from BBMP itself on what has been happening in some of the wards, if not all. The biomedical waste facilities have also been identified for all the zones, and their numbers have been published. So these have been very recently identified. And I think all the health inspectors and AEEs have been asked to get in touch with these agencies as well. And I think all of us have been seeing these headlines throughout, saying that the biomedical waste component is increasing. Our PKs itself are not being given enough of protection gear equipment. There's been a recent death of few Paura Karmikas. So there are multiple aspects that we have been reading about, and I hope that this webinar can actually clear a lot of them even through our panel discussion. Can I have Nishita in? Is Nishita here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi. So I think what we also wanted Nishita to take us through is just to show that though we are looking at this biomedical waste as something new at a residential level, it has been dealt with for several years now at a hospital, lab, or any of those entities. And Nishita is a doctor. She is going to just take us through the processes that they have been following and seeing how we can pull in the adaptability and learning from there, even at the household level. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Sophia. Actually, you've covered most of it. I mean, the initial part was exactly what we do. So the most important thing about waste management is the proper segregation. I think that's what's been followed in all the hospitals, most of the hospitals and labs, because it has to be certified. Otherwise, you do not get a license if it's not followed. So it's segregating the waste properly as infectious, maybe an infected waste, and you have the glass waste and maybe the general waste. So similarly, I think every household can follow. Right now, we have an additional COVID-19 waste, which they call it. That could be put under the biomedical waste category, like you mentioned. But I'm not sure whether the corporation comes and collects it as a separate waste. I think that's something that we have to see from households. But in hospitals, how we've been doing it is segregated, we store, and then each waste, like we have the local corporation, that is a BBMP, which collects the general waste, and the biomedical waste is given to certain other waste collectors who deal especially in disposal of such kind of waste. Now, most of the waste which is infected, that is the ones which are collected in the red bags. The red bags are the infected waste which contains tissues and, the soiled tissue, chemical tissues, all the swabs, which is blood stains, which has blood and body fluids. So that waste is usually incinerated, or it undergoes deep burial. But your PP kits, which you mentioned, your gloves and PP kits, because right now in hospitals, that's another thing that we're facing, an abundance use of PP kits, gloves, masks. So all these are disposed of. One, I think autoclaving is one method. And the other method is if, you can't keep reusing, like some waste, like some PP kits can be reused. Maybe once after autoclaving it once, but the next time you have to dispose it off, and that's shredded, like you mentioned aptly. I think that's about it. The remaining, I don't think households do really encounter, like syringes. Do they? I mean, unless they're home quarantined, then you have those plastic tubings, the suctions, the syringes, that again, they can put it under the biomedical waste category itself. It doesn't come under the general waste. And general waste has to be given to the local corporation, and that'll be managed by them. So the most important thing is the segregation. I think we've been doing it from before, saying dry waste, wet waste. Now we have an additional collection of COVID-19 waste. I think that's what I could say. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Nishita.
Yeah.
I think so. Moving on to this, we move on to the second part of our session, which is basically looking at what is going on in Ward 45 and 65. And I have Aparna here, who's part of the part of Ward 45, who has been having a few conversations with her own health inspectors and Paura Karmikas. Aparna, if you could.
Yeah. Hi. Okay. I've been talking to the Paura Karmikas, and I can see that over the past month, there has been a huge change. While earlier they would very reluctantly wear the mask, now they have the face shield, a mask, gloves, and shoes when reminded. Otherwise, they're in their little flip-flops. When I spoke with the health inspector just the other day, the junior health inspector, she was very clear that the information line it comes down to them on a daily basis with regard to the homes that are undergoing home isolation or home quarantine. That comes to them on a daily basis. So right now in Ward 45, they say there are about 9 or 10 homes. Right now, the waste is being collected from these homes. And she did mention spraying. When I checked with her with that sodium hypochlorite, she wasn't very sure. And that is collected just as the other waste is collected from the homes on a daily basis and put into the compactor and sent to the composting yard or the landfill, as the case may be. They did have a conversation very recently with the AEE, and who I think who's in charge of the Malleshwaram constituency. And although she did highlight that there was going to be a new system in place with regard to a dedicated auto, an auto driver and a helper, along with yellow bags for home isolation at the home isolation place, and there would be a certain protocol. There was no very clear directions given to them as to what exactly needed to be done and when this would start.
Right.
A big question for the from the Paurat Karmika and the auto drivers are there was a big there was a hesitation and concern that if it is only one dedicated auto rickshaw driver and helper, then why put me in the line of action, so to speak? It should be just spread across the board, because there was that huge reluctance, which I felt was quite natural. Interestingly, I did ask about the PPE units, and they said PPE suits have been given to Ward 45, 8 disposable PPE suits. And she said, what am I to do with 8 when I have 10 houses? I can just do one round of usage and then I'm done. What do I do with that thing? So that's the situation right now. Auto rickshaw drivers and the helper and on my road, there are two of these helpers, had to be reminded to wear the mask. They were not wearing gloves. They had to be reminded to wear the gloves. And all 3 of them were not wearing face shields. So I feel, and they did talk about sanitizer. Yeah, they were given a bottle of sanitizer, but there was no facility to refill it. And that, I think, is something that they need to do. Plus maintenance of all this equipment, though it's washable, how often should it be washed? How should it be washed? How should it be taken care of so it's safe to be worn again? That I don't think has been outlined to them. Yeah, I think for Ward 45, that's pretty much it.
Which is also, I think, pretty similar. Also looking at Ward 65 as well.
Yeah,
as Ramya stated.
I don't have much to add to what Aparna said. Even the health inspector didn't have a clear picture on where the COVID waste went. He just said that waste from COVID positive homes had to be packed tightly and kept, which would be collected by, and he was not even clear about whether there was a separate auto to pick COVID waste from COVID homes. So I guessed they were all dumped in the same auto and taken by the same driver. That's it. And the PKs are not very comfortable wearing protection gear. It is difficult to work with the face shield and the gloves and boots.
Yeah. I think that's been an underlying problem also for us for a while, and now it's actually becoming more and more important for them to wear it. But it's about how we sort of communicate and push that as well. Moving on, I think, so this basically gives a picture. If there are any people from other wards here who would like to resonate the same, or if there's something different in terms of the issues at least that are happening on ground, or what's happening, please feel free to add before we move on to the next session.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, hi.
Can you hear me? Yeah,
Yes.
This is Seema from Ward 150.
Hi, Seema. We can't hear you.
So we have 2 children, and again, like instructions are like this, like not very clear. Hello.
Yes,
Yeah.
Seema, can
So
hear you. Yeah.
okay. So for Parakarmika and autos, instructions are not clear. And second thing is apartment community. So we have been given one biomedical waste vendor number, but then if he says that he'll charge 6,000, 7,000 per month, I doubt like all the apartment communities will take their services for 1 or 2 cases. So
Yeah,
how
yeah.
do we solve this problem? Because people will think, okay, they'll just put it in a bag, throw in, reject. Anyway, nobody's gonna open bags and check before taking it.
Hmm.
So it's a huge problem because
Yeah.
people are thinking, okay, I have one case. If I pay 6,000 every time they want to come, I mean, they are saying 6 or 7 or 8 per month,
Hmm.
which might not be viable for all apartment communities.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
what is the solution for that? Can hospital tie up with the communities or the patient if they are going there, take their biomedical waste at least?
With them. I think
Yeah,
it's good to sort of move with that input also into the next session, because what can we actually do uh, with all of this waste and this waste generator? Thank you,
right.
Seema, for sharing that. I think we'll move into that aspect of it. So we have Odette, who is the co-founder of Beautiful Bangalore, who's the mission of the organization is to engage each resident to be the change for a clean, green, safe city and a greener planet. We also have Shweta, who is a postdoctoral research fellow at NCBS with a background in cancer biology, molecular biology, cell biology, and biochemistry. She is also a resident of Malleshwaram. We have Pinky Chandra as well. She's a co-founder of Radioactive and Co-Media Lab and a founding member of SWMRT, which at the grassroots level has been enabling community initiatives, as well as has been working extensively in pushing and nudging the government towards a better and more sustainable waste management system. I'd like to open it on and to the three of them. If I can start with Odette. Odette, as I think the one of the aspects and what we want to focus on this part of it is what can we do, right? I mean, it's all quite problematic. Of course, the lack of issues, we don't know where, and I think like also Seema was suggesting, can the patient itself take their waste and go to the hospital because they have a better way or method of dealing with that waste, you know? So I think if we'll start with the aspect of masks, which have now become a part of our attire. And with the lack of clarity on what are the most safe masks, a lot of people are moving towards disposable or single-use masks. So can you maybe tell us about the campaign and why it started and how we can sort of move forward? I also have Devi Shetty's video, which I can play a short snippet of it, and then maybe you could. Can everyone hear?
No, I think the audio is off of the movie. Sobhya, maybe we can just come to this after I've given about a minute introduction. I think it will come a little logically, just a little later.
Sure.
Okay. So meetings with masks, I think, is the new way going forward. I'm not wearing a mask after long because I'm alone. Life without lipstick is something we all have to get used to. Let me say something amusing on a serious subject. The point is, masks are there to stay for several months. We don't know how long that will be. 20th of Feb was, it was my sister's birthday. That's why I remember the date so precisely. I got a call from a relative in Singapore where they were ahead on the curve who said, buy masks, just go and buy masks. You're going to be in trouble. It's going to hit. So I went to a pharmacy and I actually have this unopened mask. He had only 3 left and I bought 3 of these N95 because that's 5 months ago. We didn't know anything. We just knew we needed masks. And the disposable masks, he had run out of them. He had only 6 and I'm ashamed to say I bought all 6. I have used only 1 in that first week. And now that this whole subject of masks is there, this is a used one from the time of SARS in, I think, 2011 or 12, when my husband had to travel, and I have one as a sample. Then, of course, you have these ones. And these N95 ones, now we know, which have the valve, are actually not, they're only protecting the wearer. They are not protecting the virus from when it's exhaled. So we have all these varieties of disposable masks, and you walk on the street, you see all these varieties. The most frightening one I see is this one, the most common one. Why I call it frightening? is I walk on the street and I ask all the, let's say, maids and drivers who are wearing this, that how long have you been wearing it? They have been, one of them said, I'm wearing it since lockdown, which is 2 months ago at that time. So these masks are happily being reused when they should not be. And everyone at that time believed that disposable masks was the only way to go. Today, we know that no, for regular preventive use of a non-infected patient, a resident, we don't need disposable masks. So let's now listen to Dr. Devi Shetty, who is the, I think this is the standard guideline taken across the city. He is advisor to Government of Karnataka. And if he says for regular preventive use, we do not need these disposable masks and we should all use cloth masks, I think that's the first important point to listen to.
I'm just going to play it. I hope it's audible.
Audio is off again.
Not able to hear?
No.
But I think most of us have seen this video.
I'm going to give it a last try and let's see if it works.
So we can, no, its audio is not coming, but we can give them a link to play this. So anyone who's not seen this video, please access the link. Very simply, I'll tell you, if you just go to beautifulbengaluru.org and under campaigns and contests, we have a page on zero waste masks. So all the posters and a couple of the videos that you're going to watch are all on that page, right? So, but this is an important summary. Whenever there's a discussion on any city group which says no, cloth masks are not good enough, please play Dr. Devi Shetty's video, because it's the final word that says for regular preventive use, cloth masks are good enough. And I think why that is relevant is we are a population of 1.3 people in this, 1.3 crores in this city. So just imagine, even if let's say one crore people use these masks, that's the amount of waste generated every day. This collage you see on the left is what I clicked on the first day after lockdown, during lockdown, when I walked to the store. Not even a 5-minute walk, and I found these on the ground, right? So that's the biggest problem of these disposable masks, are generating a huge amount of litter. So that is going, you can see one almost next to a drain. They will all flow down our drains, cause flooding. But the fact is we don't know how many of these masks were worn by asymptomatic carriers and are actually carrying the infection. You can move to the next slide, Sobhya. So really speaking, what we need to do, if you look at the slide on the left, I've put in a news article when we had 23 Paurakarmikas test positive. And they are not, it's not surprising that they may test positive if we are feeding them with waste, which need not be waste. So my one summary of this is, let's cut down COVID waste to the bare essential. And that means not using these kind of masks, and they can be used only for 6 hours, as Dr. Devi Shetty clarified. They can only be used for 6 hours, which means if we have to stay safe, we have to keep reusing them. Therefore, the best are cloth masks. So why, to answer your question, Sobhya, why we went in for this campaign of zero waste cloth masks, is we wanted people to realize that it's very simple to stitch your own, or there's so many campaigns going around. Times of India, Dr. Devi Shetty's video incidentally is part of Times of India's Mask India campaign. You have, I think you have Janagraha and I Changed My City with Mask Up Bengaluru. You have BPAC doing, so a lot of campaigns are there to get people to shift to the cloth reusable masks. The second point is, when we're generating so much waste, what happens to that waste, which is a source of infection? And what was scary is in that most homes, so if you look at the posters here, BBMP now is clearly telling people as well, please use reusable masks. Yeah. We can move to the next set. Initially, there was a lot of confusion of what, this is the reusable mask campaign, the zero waste mask campaign, which we have. So anyone can make their cloth masks from upcycle. So we've added the angle of sustainability. Make your masks from an old t-shirt, bed sheet, whatever, and just send them to us. If you just type beautifulbengaluru.org, you'll get further details. And we'll go to the last slide, which where I want to focus on the correct disposal. So while on one hand, we try to cut down the amount of waste we generate in our homes, from masks or even these gloves. There's so many people wearing gloves. You see them flying out of windows because somebody decided to wash them. We don't need these gloves. Medically, if I wear a glove, it only protects me. The glove, in fact, picks up the infection and it will transfer it across surfaces. So it does not, it's not actually recommended except in surgical circumstances. Definitely need to do with, but where essential, if you've really used it, at least let's dispose of it in the correct way. The biggest problem initially when I made this poster on the right was in early April, when I think Malini, if you're listening, it was Malini who flagged saying that everyone is disposing it in dry waste. And that's what we realized. It's dry. So people think in wet, dry, reject, this goes into dry. It was reaching the DWCC. So we have videos. There's a video which the Quint did. It's also on our webpage. We have Kumuda from one of the wards, who's the DWCC worker, who makes a really heart-rending appeal to the public saying, don't use these disposable masks and please don't drop them in dry waste. They are meant to go into reject waste. So if you see that brown paper cover, that is how we are supposed to dispose of these disposable masks. But I think we all need to rewind one step ahead and say no disposable masks to the extent possible. The problem today, when you see that red bucket there in the third poster of reject, if a household, which is general prevention, uses these disposable masks, it goes into the reject bucket. But this is not to be followed if there are COVID positive homes or there are quarantine homes, where I think you have other people who are going to speak about, and Shobhya has already covered that. So in summary, let's each of us try to influence our communities not to use disposables. It's just like, you know, earlier, all of us green thinkers would, you know, go green at the gills when we saw the plastic bags. Now we see the same problem. I did a delivery from Geo the other day, and because I crossed a certain amount, they gave me this free word. How do you like that?
Oh, wow.
Free disposable masks. I'm going to tweet to them. So they, on one side, these are being applied to the public. So that's, I think, the sum of the message.
Yeah. Thanks, Odette. I think it really sums up also what's happening, the mixed messaging that's happening. And we actually have a team in as a part of Malleshwaram Urban Living Lab working on this aspect of saying how do we increase the use of cloth masks as opposed to disposable masks. And I think it's a very valid point, and waste, I think, is the receiving end of it, you know, the
Can
entire
I
waste
take
management
30
system.
seconds more on one more point? One very relevant point to COVID infection is you see people like this, they're usually wearing the disposable mask on the street, picking it off, spitting and putting it back. So we have a separate Stop India Spitting campaign running. So anyone who feels passionately of we need to stop spitting, please send an email to stopindiaspitting@gmail.com and learn more about it, because this is very much linked to this whole COVID prevention theme.
Thanks for that. I think now we'll move on to Shweta. Shweta, there was this one aspect that has been coming up, right, massively on how can somebody who is COVID positive, and home isolation is also increasing with a lot of asymptomatic patients. How can we actually manage our waste when we are in a situation of having COVID?
Yeah, thanks, Sophia. So when you're under home quarantine and you have been tested positive for COVID, you are basically in a room with its own toilet attached so that you do not interact with others. So you should have mechanisms where you collect your own waste or find ways to treat this waste. So one way of doing that is all of you basically have your own set of cutlery and spoons. You do not need to use disposable. And these cutlery and spoons, you have your own set, right? Once you finish using them, you can rinse it off in your bathroom and then drop it in a bucket of hot water that could be placed just outside the door. So the bucket has hot water and soap. The same can be done for your clothes that you're wearing and your bed linen. You can drop it off in really hot water containing laundry detergent. And then other people
with the soap.
Yes, with soap. Yeah, and then other people can wash it off and put it out in the sun to dry. Okay, so all the other waste, you have to bag it separately. In case, any waste that's coming out of the room of a COVID positive patient has to be bagged and kept aside. And this bag should be double bagged, hopefully, in case it has material leaking out. That doesn't happen. And then when this bag goes out of the room, it has to be surface sprayed. So it's nicely packed bag and it is sterilized on the surface so that anybody else outside handling this bag doesn't get any infection. And then it goes to the garbage collector. But here, again, you have to treat it. I'm assuming that COVID positive patient inside the room will not be using any mask or any gloves. So this is
So
only
even if they are, Shweta,
COVID
like
positive waste.
yeah. But if I say, for example, see, this requires also
So you
some level of
basically
preparation, right? So if I'm going to
Yeah, so
have my
you
waste
basically-
separately. Yes, Shweta. Shweta? We can't hear you. Shweta?
Hello. Yeah, sorry, I just lost you.
Yes.
Yeah,
No,
you were
I was
saying?
actually saying that if this does mean that there needs to be more preparation. Like, for example, in my house, I may just have 2 bins or 3 bins at the most. How does one start preparing for this aspect even beforehand? Because you may be susceptible to getting COVID. And if you are going to get isolated in a house, do I prepare by buying some bags? Is that what we are saying? Or can I just use bins and leave them aside? Then how do I leave them? Where do I leave them? So I think a little bit on what could be the prep that can happen, because the aspect of home isolation is increasing and anybody could get home isolated, especially if they're not in the vulnerable category.
Correct. So what you could do is, as you know, 72 hours is the cutoff,
Yeah.
right? So you would want to keep the waste at least for 72 hours, right?
Yeah.
So you can collect it and keep it for that much time. And then when it makes its way out of that room after 72 hours, now it is sealed inside, right? So that 72 hours inside is done, but outside could still be infected. So you spray it on the outside and then leave it out of the room. That's one way of handling it. Otherwise, there are no specific guidelines, and even when the BBMP comes in, there is no separate bucket or what do you say, a garbage bin for COVID specific waste. So one would be to give them, at least ask them to keep a bin for masks and gloves and all of them, only for the masks and gloves that is not COVID positive. And then another one for biomedical infected waste that's coming from COVID household.
Yes.
And another one was,
I think,
yes,
please,
somebody
please.
had raised this question of, sending the waste from COVID positive households to a neighboring hospital. So I know that since I work in a lab and I've had conversations about how the lab deals with, contaminated and infectious waste. The agency that comes and picks it up basically does it in terms of weight. So if all households are going to be sending their biomedical waste to the hospitals, they would have to bear the price for it. That's one. And it's not a very...
They would have to bear the cost for it.
The cost for it, yes. They pay for it.
Okay.
It's on a weight basis. And I'm sure the hospital will not be okay with something like this, because everybody will be moving towards the hospital just to dump off their waste. So there must be another alternative thing where there might be another separate collection point where people can just leave their biomedical waste properly, put in the proper right colored bags. Those bags are also not seen. I haven't seen it outside the lab.
Yeah, yeah.
So all these yellow bags, the red bags, the blue bags, I've never seen it outside of my lab. So how does one deal with it? Even these the needles, the sharps, the glass, the way we dispose is not the same way that we would do in a lab setting. No? When we come home and we dispose glass, it just goes into the normal same bin. We don't have a separate container where all the sharps and these are not going. So even when, for the safety of the powder karmikas, also there has to be a dabba where these needles don't come sticking out, so that all these things can be put inside hard, container.
So I think it is our responsibility to ensure that we don't provide it in a way that there is a potential of infection of the waste worker as well, which is one of the reasons also why they're saying bag it and put it in, and also maybe the type of bin that people are using needs to be a closed bin in that sense.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's very insightful as well in terms of how we could do it, and also the fact that you can wash, soak, and I think in one of our previous conversations also this thing came out of, you know, if I had taken too much of food waste and not finished the food, and I think in one of our previous webinars also it was suggested that just give the right amount of food, and that's what the doctor had said, saying that don't take too much food, take the right amount of food and don't waste food, saying that is the starting point. So you're already dealing with your wet waste there. So I think that was also a point to take into consideration. Great, Shweta, thank you. Thank you so much. I'd like to get Pinky in at this stage. Yeah, Shweta.
No, these are small differences and small changes that we can do to our own lifestyle. We don't have to get disposable.
Yeah.
I know right now Swiggy and Zomato are doing a tremendous job and making really high sales at times of COVID, but this might not work out for us in the long run because they are generating a lot of disposable.
Yeah.
So we have to find a way to go, circumvent this issue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Sobhya.
Thanks, Shweta. I'd like to move to Pinky. Pinky, you have been writing a lot also about, I think you had put out your initial article back in April on the changing nature of waste and COVID positive waste, as well as the rules and regulations that are already in place by the CPCB, some of which we covered. What do you think are the missing aspects? Is it all practical and replicable? Is it all possible? Or are there gaps in the current way the rules itself have stated themselves?
Thanks, Sobhya. I would like to draw your attention to what the High Court had pointed out in its order on the 24th of April 2020. They said there appears to be a need for further revision of the guidelines to cover all aspects covering not merely institutions, but also individual households dealing with situations where scientific disposal facilities like incinerators are not available, and any unmindful deep burial without adequate safeguards can adversely affect the groundwater and pose danger to health and safety of people. The second point that they made was disposal of COVID waste in general bins so as to be part of municipal waste or unscientific handling, sewage and other liquid waste without safeguard can also be hazardous. There is a need to incorporate best practices in the light of further experience and new thoughts emerging from time to time. Apart from continued supervision, monitoring, compiling data in an online format, use of electronic digital manifest system to track and log COVID waste from all sources, preventing its accident spillage, analyzing the data for strategic planning, and feedback by creating necessary software to the extent viable. The fourth point that they mentioned was there's also a need for creating awareness about the precautions and steps to be taken by all handlers, workers, as well as citizens, making a model plan to be adopted locally by the Panchayat subdivision district state authorities with such further changes as may be necessary in local conditions. Now, having said that, and like you rightly pointed out, the first time that I put out a post was 17th March, and then following that, Nalini and I did another one we did like a live session, before the lockdown was announced, and then 6th April, we actually analyzed what was happening, and then on 18th April onwards, we had all the waste collectors sending us videos and audios, making programs about the increase of mask in waste, in dry waste. Having said that, the new CPCB rules, when I read it, was too much to our disappointment, because there are a lot of things that we've already discussed, and it's like when we've taken one step forward, we've taken 2 steps backward. And I'm quoting specific clauses from the new thing, and it doesn't even answer what the High Court had pointed out. I think it's gone back to the same thing that we've been raising questions as early as March about waste management. So it says here very clearly, ULB is required to ensure daily collection of segregated general solid waste from quarantine centers, home care and hospitals in securely tied bags without opening to ensure waste collector safety to avoid pilferage. As a precautionary measure, you can spray and all that. General solid waste may be disposed as per SWM rules 2016, which may include disposal in landfills, waste to energy plants, depending on available infrastructure. So this puts us again back to where we've started, which means we are now advocating for all these things to go back and to be treated as mixed waste and dumped or incinerated. Having spoken to the current programs that we are getting, is most of them are not aware. And if you look at the ESG report as well on Paurakarmikas, one of the things that they mentioned is that the Paurakarmikas, there is no protocol for collecting biomedical waste from homes that are under home quarantine. And it's the same for dry waste collection centers, operators collecting dry waste from houses that have been marked as quarantine. So the CPCB guidelines in its essence has failed to actually look into the steps that some of the municipalities have taken in terms of segregating waste, streamlining collection. So we've really gone back, and it's brought back the focus on what Odette pointed out. They are now categorizing used mask, which needs to be cut and put it in the same dry waste, which means you're exposing the dry waste collection operators again into risk. And from there, they're saying send it elsewhere, which is not feasible. Once you put it in your dry waste, it contaminates all the other waste. And not everybody has had the access to solutions to spray, to disinfect the dry waste. So that's one. Even though the High Court has asked for it to be a broad-based thing, this rule, this guideline does not talk about public spaces. When we were doing this campaign on looking at how we should look at getting Bangalore moving, one of the things that struck us, because we saw this video posted on Twitter by BMTC, which it says that there is a facility for the drivers and conductors to put in their mask and gloves in a closed bin, but that's about it, nothing else. It doesn't talk about what happens next. So how are people who are using public transport, or how are people who are walking on the road, how are they disposing used masks and gloves? It's all around. So it's going back to it. So I think in that sense, having already made sufficient progress in terms of how we're handling our waste in Bangalore, I think as citizens, we need to come together and talk about what we can do together collectively to address this issue, than to fall back on and then look at, going back in time where it will take us years then to reach the stage that we are in today. So,
And I think, Pinky, the aspect that you raised also, to say that it is okay now to send it back to the landfill, right? And raising what Shweta was saying, on saying now, shall we actually have just one bin for a COVID infected patient, or does that person now also have to have 3 bins in their room, right? When I am in home isolation, do I keep my 3 bins? Do I accumulate my dry waste in a separate bag? Do I keep my biomedical, which is my masks and all of that? And do I keep my wet waste? And then when it comes to asymptomatic patients who are who don't even know they have COVID and are using masks and are disposing their masks, which is automatically been put, it's not like their waste has been collected separately as biomedical waste. We haven't even looked at that category of people right now. So I mean, these are a few things that to start to even think about. And how do you think that this can be addressed to even start off with?
See, I think initially when there was a lot of noise about masks coming in dry waste, BBMP put out this poster which is on the screen, which says masks need to be wrapped in a paper bag with an X cross over it and handed over to the waste collector separately. If you look at Mansoor or Kumuda's video, even they say the same thing. As waste collectors or as dry waste operation collectors, what we would like is if you could give us masks separately, then we know that this is mask and we will not touch it. So we know, so that was something that they made a point very clear. And I think that's a good strategy that we should continue to pursue. So that the waste collectors are aware that this. Mansoor told me in an interview, which will go on Monday, he said that on an average from the last 3 months that he's been collecting waste, he's been getting on an average 200 masks per day. So 200 masks per day. So he's not weighed it, but he's keeping a count and a number. So on approximately 200 masks a day, which is like almost, if you calculate it for the 3 months, the amount of masks in one dry waste collection center collected is quite huge. Karnataka government, as part of CPCB compliance, when they put out a notification, when they submitted their report, they said on an average, this is Karnataka, I don't have Bangalore figures, they said on an average, as of 31st May 2020, 2.8 tons per day of COVID biomedical waste have been collected. Now, I'm sure that these figures are only from the hospitals and not the homes. And they said, in terms of captive facilities, Karnataka reported nothing in terms of captive facilities that we've been talking about. So you're saying, where are these collection things? In terms of burial pits, also Karnataka said nothing. In terms of adequacy of existing treatment facility, the only comment there was adequate. In terms of CPCB waste tracking app, if Karnataka has gone all out in terms of uploading the data, it says partially implemented. And in terms of model plans for village and subdivisions, information was not provided. And since that is an arm for CPCB, I think as citizens, we should get together and make a model plan for our own ward or for our own city and submit it and get them to implement that. I think that would be the way forward.
Yeah, great. I think that leads us very well into our next session, Pinky. Thank you so much. I think the one takeaway for me also is the fact that whether I am even putting it in dry waste right now, if anyone is using a disposable mask, the least we can do is at least wrap it in a brown bag and mark it when we put it in our dry waste. Coming to the second part of it, which is how do we help protect our waste workers? I will start with actually Vishwanath and Inda. And I have this video, but I don't know how the sound is going to play out again, if it is going to play out. Can anyone hear?
No, answer you.
No? I think we'll get, I will just run through the video because it does have lines there. But we'll get Vishwanath and Inda to then also talk about it.
Okay. Hello, my name is Vishwanath and there's Inda. We are from Hasiru Dala. So we work as a program managers in Hasiru Dala for past 3 and 3.5 years. So what we do is we work with dry waste collection centers. We help dry waste collection centers and we act as a bridge for BBMP, RWAs, and we also give awareness. We create awareness for dry waste segregation and what involved. So during COVID, we actually had a situation where first thing is, I mean, like as you saw so much, there is a dry waste collection center. The one which you are observing is handled by Mr. Mans. from 168 Pattabi Ram Nagar. So, started to get complaints saying that there's been huge masks and gloves that they have been getting it from the dry waste. So what happened is the steps and measures that we took us. So we gave PP. PP was put in use for past 2 years. Then now to adopt the COVID thing. So we gave face shields, but the PP we also gave 112 for drivers collection center, which is in Damblor. So we had given them a PP set, a complete PP, where as you have seen for the doctors how they wear. So, but for the waste collectors, it is really difficult. They couldn't withstand even for an 15 to 20 minutes in that suit, PPE suit. So what we thought is, we thought of buying disinfectant, and we also distributed the disinfectant. So I've shared a video to Sophia. Sophia, can you play that?
I will try, but you sent it to me on WhatsApp, right?
Yes. If you want me to share it, I'll share.
No, yes, you can also share your screen if you like. I could put it in if you've got it. You can share your screen.
Okay. Open your.
Vishwanath, if it isn't working,
Okay.
Coming on? Maybe we can just talk a little bit about what is it that can happen. One is that aspect, and plus the kinds of things that you all are doing now to support the current, because I know you guys have been looking at how you can improvise the safety of the workers as well in your DWCCs. This is the Hasirudala and DWCCs, which are around 30 plus in the city. But we do have many more DWCCs which may not have even started, that kind of support. So it'd be good to just understand that very briefly.
Yeah, so when this first lockdown was announced, at that time, we first of all, we started with recording some videos in all the languages which are understandable by our people who we are associated with. We began with that, and we were already encouraging the use of PPE in all DWCCs where we were working for last 2 years. And now the requests were coming from the workers that we fare our lives kind of waste that is coming, and we get so much quantity of disposables, of gloves and masks every day. So now the need of ours is like we also want PPE to protect ourselves. So we started with distribution of sanitizers, and then we also started the distribution of other PPE which they are using now. The first 7 month of door-to-door collection, and they continued. They didn't have an option to actually stop collecting because DWCC was a part of dry waste collection, was part of essential services. So on our end, when moving forward, see till now, so many things have happened with the recycling industry. This has been the one where the workers have been affected the most, and this time the fear is of losing their lives, also getting infected also. Till now it was mostly the economic, fear of losing livelihoods, but this time this fear of losing their lives and putting their children and family members, everybody's lives at stake. So as like in the beginning in the market, we didn't even know what were options available and how we could also help our people. So as time went on, so currently from every time to time, we make sure that the workers have sanitizers. They use sanitizers from time to time. All of them use masks and gloves day-to-day basis, and we're trying to educate them that they have to wash their masks, how they have to reuse up to 4 hours of using a mask, how they have to change the mask and then start using a fresh pair of masks. And then the other, very recently when the death of Paura Karmikas and was reported in the news, at that time requests came from the workers that we fear that now the waste is also getting contaminated. So we made arrangements for disinfecting the waste also that they are collecting. So now whenever they go for collection and they come to work in the morning, so they disinfect the whole place and the waste that they collect from dry waste, all that they get. And even so we're trying to also generate awareness with people on safe disposal methods for all this waste that is coming in. But that change we've not seen so much right now. But from our end, these are the efforts that we are trying to do, make sure that our people are protected in all ways possible. But at the same time,
but even the masks that are coming in right now, how are you guys disposing it at this moment from the DWCC? Where is it going?
From dry waste collection center, what happens is all those masks, they take it out separate. First thing is, as they got all the masks while all these days, so now even the operators and the driver and helpers, they got cautious, and whenever they see the waste, so they open the bag and they see it. So if the masks are there, so that they'll just give it and wrap it in a paper or something and then give it back to the residents. The one which ends up in dry waste collection center is kept aside separately, and it will be marked and given it to the informed to the health inspector, so that they'll send their workers
to the landfill.
Yes.
So it is anyway going. So basically, there is no need for it to come to the DWCC at all, because it is ultimately ending up going to the compactor, which is going to the landfill anyway.
Yes. But the thing is, we request to the residents that it should never be part of the dry waste, because it has to be treated as reject waste.
I think that's a very sort of fair point also from that perspective. And I think coming to the last bit, and I know the session has been extended a bit, I'm going to move on to Shakila and Shweta.
One more thing, I'm sorry to add that. So so one more thing is the safety measure that we had taken with our dry waste collection center workers is, first thing, we had this COVID awareness. I mean, this was in the first and second lockdown in the month of May. So we went to their colonies, workers' colonies, and informed them, saying that how they have to be. I mean, how the awareness was given in the slums. And next, after that, now we have been giving them the list, and we have been calling them every day. Our coordinators are on field, and when they go and meet, they inform which are the primary health cares or fever clinics that are right next to their dry waste collection center. They will be accessible. So if any sorters or the workers have any they have any symptoms, or if they are not feeling well, they are asked to be at home.
So accessibility to healthcare, even information to healthcare for them as well, is an important thing, I think, because one of the reasons the Paura Karmika also suffered was because the timely healthcare was not provided. And I think it's important, since they are frontline workers, that we also support them in that aspect.
Yes.
Thanks, Shakila. I'm going to move on in the interest of time. We'll move on to Shakila and Shweta, because they have been working, and as a community, they have looked at how they can support the waste workers that are coming to collect the waste. If you can sort of also start with just answering the fact that what are the initiatives related to COVID, and how did you actually start with this entire initiative related to all the COVID activities, and how did you start nudging the system as well as your waste collectors to move into action?
Happy evening, everybody, and thanks, Sophia, for this opportunity. Okay, so we have Wow Shweta and Wow Shakila from Wow Group. we belong to 177 ward. So in our ward, we have around 17 blocks, and we typically work from block 1 to 8. So with this situation, crisis situation, initially we started with awareness, okay? Awareness to all the residents, like what has to be done, and avoiding more of disposable masks, and then how to take precautions. And also we took care of these waste pickers. And here I would like to clarify that where generally we say PKS, okay? So, but they are taken care, they are the road sweepers who are taken care with BBMP. But these waste pickers, they come under the contractor and who provides all the facilities for them. So here we have 17 blocks, 17 tipper vehicle, and each tipper vehicle has one driver and one cleaner. And contractor did provide lot of gloves, face shield, mask, and also shoes, not boots, but shoes. But we found out in the process it was not adequate, not maintained properly. And somehow all residents started complaining, yes, it is not so. And July became an apprehensive period also for us because neighborhood all had lot of COVID positive cases. Then we thought of various options. One was we have lane composters donated by Hasirudala. So all our wet waste doesn't go out. It goes to the composters in our lane, and we have our own compost being generated. But the residents were not cooperative. So then what are the other solutions? Then we went for PPE, and we didn't go for disposable because it was very expensive. And also once again, we are adding on to the waste, which we are not at all for it. So then we did a survey, and then we did identify a vendor who has given us this PPE. And as a trial, we tried it with our block 5. And we have Venkatesh and Pavan wearing it. And as a trial, we said, we'll wait for 4-5 days and then work on. But surprisingly, the next day itself, all residents came and said they were very happy. They felt so secure seeing these boys doing this door-to-door collection. So they are also safe, and these two boys also are safe. So they were very happy, and they were also willing to contribute to provide for the other blocks too. And the boys, they have also given a video, we will share it later if it's possible, where they said they are very comfortable, yes, and it covers everything. And also I just read what Sobia had measured as per WHO speculation, that whatever it is, that a long suit and then a headgear, a boot, and the gloves is being provided. And with this blue shoe was not okay with them. We got feedback. Then we provided gum boots for them. And people are very happy. And also we have WhatsApp group for all the blocks. And also we have WhatsApp for all the PKs also. So before giving, we ask them, are you willing to wear it? And are you for this? And we have given enough orientation as to how to wear it. We give a demo and how to maintain it. And for our block, there in a PG, we have a space created for these boys to wash this and dry it out with a light detergent. They can wash and dry it out in sunlight. And we have given strict instruction that this should not be taken to their home. And every day in the morning, come for door-to-door collection. We see if they wear this and if it is clean. And every alternate days, they have to wash. And honestly, they have washed it twice so far. So everybody is happy with this. So this is what we had tried in our block. The residents are happy, and the PKs and everybody team also is happy. And for the road sweepers, we have given lot of cloth face masks and also like gloves. Okay, but BBMP gives them a lot of it. So that is how we have taken care of safety measures. And with the support of Let's Mask India, we have all these cloth masks, okay? So everybody in our street, we give all these PKs in our ward, even dry waste center. Our dry waste is collected by Hasirudala, and dry waste DWCC is very close in our 5th block. So this Let's Mark support has given a tremendous support, where we carry, like how you carry your own cloth bag. In the cloth bag, definitely there are some 5 to 6 cloth masks. So we give all the maids in the street, and we have given it to milk vendors, paper guys, whoever comes in our road without a mask, definitely. And if you see a disposable also, we say, please give this and take that. We exchange. So that is how we are giving cloth masks. So that's how we thank really Let's Mask India. It's a good thing. And of course, we have given gloves and face shield. This is what we have tried, Sobhya, in our blog. And Shweta will add on to any other inputs.
If I can also mention, just in fact, ask how you all as a community started. I think whatever's been done is quite amazing that you all have been able to mobilize. But if you guys can highlight a little bit about how many people from the community came together to do this? How did you work with the BBMP and the municipality? What is the kind of initial push that you had to give so that this got adopted? I think to understand, and how much time did it take you to actually get this through?
Okay, yeah, to answer to that, Sobhya, we actually, our group just started for our street. We just started with 4 or 5 ladies. It is called Women of Wisdom. So because we were not interacting with the neighborhood, we didn't know who are there at the next door, who is there at the corner of the street, and what's happening in the streets and all. And when we follow the apartments and all, they have some committee to take care of things. And there are the president, secretary, somebody to take care of things if something goes wrong. When you come to these individual streets, okay, there's no one to talk about the issues happening. So we thought, why can't we form a group to address such issues of the, and we have major senior citizens in our street. And we used to see that talking a lot to get the issues fixed. That's when we thought we'll have a community where we'll help others and we'll also know each other. And we started with small thing like social gathering. Then slowly it came up to waste management. And our MLA Soumya Reddy ma'am and our corporator Lakshmi Nataraj, and they gave us a lot of support and they pushed us to take up a project called Zero Waste. And Hasrudala was helped us in this, and we thank them also. And slowly we started learning. I cannot say we knew everything. We started learning about waste management, and we thought there's a major aspect where we can work a lot. So we do other activities also, but solid waste management become our priority. Okay. So then we started knowing our health inspector, how many blocks are there, how many vehicles are there, how many cleaners, drivers are there, who is Paura Karmika, what is dry waste center. So we did learning about all these things, and then we started educating our group. So now each one in our group are educated well about solid waste management. Then we started with collection of waste, which we strictly told you every resident has to follow that. If it is not done, the waste will not be picked up. And we have vehicles where block 1, block 2, block 3 is marked on it. So we will know where our vehicles are moving around. And especially wet waste collectors were trained on collecting the waste. Earlier they used to collect in plastics, and if it is a mixed waste, they used to collect and they used to segregate. But we gave a clear instruction to them: if it is a mixed waste, they're not supposed to pick it up, and it has to be informed to us. So we go and talk to them, to the resident personally. We tell them, henceforth, you're not supposed to do that. But going forward, if something is done, waste will not be picked up. So this is how we form blocks for all the we mainly focus on 1 to 8 blocks, and we know all 8 blocks cleaners and drivers, and we have a separate group for them where we'll be having a regular communication with them. So this is how it helped us very much.
You already had a good network set and a good communication set for starting and providing support.
This really helped us, and we also had different WhatsApp groups for different blocks, 1 to 8. So it was easy for us to circulate the message to other blocks, telling that please help your cleaner and drivers, so that we can get them PPE like this. And we made a video of these people sharing it and send it to them. And also we took the feedback from the other cleaners and drivers, whether they want to wear it or not, because initially even we were not very clear that whether they can wear it and work. So we wanted that feedback, and we made our block cleaners and drivers, Pavan and Venkatesh, to work for 4 days and give us a feedback. So then we got the feedback in that they said it was very user friendly for them, and they were feeling more safe of it, because the problem in our ward was that there were COVID issues, positive cases, which were getting to be notified very late, after 2 days or 3 days. By the time they could have the information, they were already collected it. So they telling that the information is being informed, communicated very. By the time there are chances we get infected also, and all of them have very small kids. So they said we are very much worried about family now, so we need some safety gears. So that's when we came, why can't we try this? So we wanted to try this. We thought, well, let's try with our block. And after 4 days, they came back and that everything is fine except the boots is not very comfortable. So then we came up with a gum. So then after having an input from our block people, then we started taking feedback from other blocks collectors that whether they need it or will they use it. And in the group, we told them we need a confirmation from each one that we will use it. Only then we are going to provide it, because it's the money we are going to collect from the residents, and we don't want that money to be wasted. No, so but after we getting the confirmation from everybody, then we started. We made a small template where we gave that, no, let's help our community helpers, and we circulated, and we were very much so happy that the response was very good. So all of them came that it is very good initiative. We want to support because it's their safety, our safety. So and they started contributing. So as and when we started getting money, we started getting the PPs ordered. So now we have given it to 4 blocks. So other 4 blocks is still remaining, which we'll be getting in the next week. So we'll be giving it to them. And our health inspector, supervisor, and contractor are very happy with this, and they thought it is the right move for our ward. So till now, we are feeling that we feel very safe for them, because we very much to them. And that WhatsApp group created, no, that really helps, because these helpers feel very much part of it, and we work as a team. That is what I think I would like to highlight. So we have residents, we have our WOW members, and then we have BBMP health inspector, all these community helpers, and we have a MLA and
the corporator as well.
Yes, so we work as a team. So it's to communicate, get feedback, implement, and monitor.
Yeah. Great. I think that's a beautiful example, and it's also a beautiful way to end the panel discussion. Thank you so much. I would open it out for questions for the next 5 to 10 minutes. If we can type out our questions, and then we could sort of take it from there.
So we have some questions have already have come in. So
yes, Chitra, please.
I can just quickly go through them. I think a couple of questions concern this issues of home isolation. So if you're in home isolation, if there is a person who's in home isolation, then would only their waste be treated as biomedical waste, or everybody's waste be treated as biomedical waste? I suppose the answer, I don't know. Shweta can answer this. Many of the questions probably Shweta can answer. Dr. Shweta.
I didn't get the question. Can you repeat that?
So if there is, I think two things which are connected to people who are in home isolation. To couple of things actually. One is that shouldn't the waste from a COVID patient who is in home isolation, shouldn't the waste be segregated? Secondly, once the waste is segregated, how does it go out? How will it be taken out? Thirdly, is the other people in their household, would their waste also be treated in the same way, or because you don't know whether they are also infected, they might be asymptomatic, would they also their waste be treated as biomedical waste? So these are three sort of connected questions.
So if the status is unsure, it is always better to be cautious and assume that you are COVID positive and treat all the waste similarly from one household. And all the waste that's probably coming out has to be segregated. And you could have a spot in your house where you keep the waste for at least 72 hours before you...
your name.
Hello?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. So after 72 hours of storing the waste, you can sort of safely dispose it, because you're sort of sure that the virus has been mostly inactivated.
Okay. The question here is, what about wet waste? What happens to that? Because you can bag the dry waste and you can wait for 72 hours. After you've segregated the wet waste, let's say sanitary waste from a patient, what would happen to that?
So the sanitary waste, if it is from an infected person, it has to be bagged twice.
Biomedical waste.
And it has to go in as biomedical waste.
So, okay, right. Then if there is a case, and in an apartment complex, all the other apartments would their waste would go in the normal way, and this would go as biomedical waste, right?
Correct. Only the affected household waste is considered as biomedical, whereas the others who are only under, quarantine because they are in close quarters, their waste is treated normally.
Okay. The idea came of isolated people also need to wear masks. What is the necessity if you're sitting by yourself in your room?
Exactly. That was the same question that I had, but I'm assuming that the viral loads are high, and every time you would open the door, you're sending out the virus and others could get affected. So it does make sense to have a mask on.
Yeah.
For any patient who's COVID positive tested. So
Right.
even if you are under home quarantine and you are a COVID positive patient, to protect others, you have to wear it.
I think one more question, I don't know, this can go to maybe Pinky or anybody else. This says that should the DWCC start incinerating or handling biomed waste so that it doesn't go to a landfill? Is there some way of making a provision within the DWCC?
Gavin, Vishwanath, Inda can also take that.
DWCCs are not equipped to handle biomedical waste or other.
Yeah, they are not currently, but should they be? Should they be the points so that doesn't go to a landfill? I think that's the question.
Rather than having points at DWCCs, it's there. See, the way our centers are run are on a public-private model, where the entrepreneur is a waste picker who runs the centers. They themselves won't have enough, expertise to run such things at the centers. And as it is, the centers are very small in size. You, when you're handling such waste, you have to make sure that you follow certain SOPs and make sure it is kept aside, properly placed, so that it does not create more problem than it is supposed to. So DWCC, I think, is not the right place to have. It should be the collecting point of the waste. Rather than getting it to DWCC, it makes more sense to collect this waste right from the household and from there disposed of safely.
Sure. All right. I think connected question, would it make sense to have a biomedical waste incinerator at the division level? Is that something which is now has come? Would it be something which is a new requirement that we should be looking at?
Yes, but again, BBMP may not have enough infrastructure to set up these structures right away or within a time span of 1 month or 2 months. So best deal right now is to connect to vendors who are already there, but negotiate on the cost, because right now the costs that are being offered are way too much. So common people will not be comfortable to adhere to those costs when they're, even if they want to dispose of the waste properly, but they may not have means to do so.
Suchitra, I would like to add to that point only to say that these biomedical waste processing facilities, the 4 agencies that have been identified by the city, are actually set up with entire KSPCB compliances. So when you're setting up an incinerator, your emissions are checked such that they are proper. Plus, there are certain protocols that the setup itself has to handle. So it's not as easy as putting it, setting up an incinerator, putting it there and it's gone. There are norms related to the emissions. There are norms related to the space that you allocate to it. So I think all of these play a role because you're dealing with infected waste with virus. It's not even sanitary napkins for that matter, which it's easy to have smaller incinerators. But when you talk about biomedical, now it moves into another notch of being infected waste. So I think that's the distinguishing factor. Apart from the fact that I think what all the rules are also saying is, have a dedicated point to store this waste till it leaves the ward, which I think is an important point to pull forward, as opposed to saying I'll have incinerators which may not be practically viable.
I agree, totally agree, because it doesn't really make sense to have incinerators at a division level. I mean, because we're talking about pollution being a major factor, it's a health risk, and it shouldn't, I wouldn't support that.
Right.
And the earlier point that you made, I think the CPCB guidelines in that sense is very clear in talking about segregation of waste. it very clearly says that solid waste, dry waste, my interpretation is dry waste also has to be segregated separately, and biomedical has to be separated. This is adding to Shweta what she had mentioned, and it very clearly states that it should be secured separately and handed over to the authorized waste collectors of ULBs, and that ULB should ensure that leftover food and general solid waste is not collected in yellow bags.
Yes, and one more point that to be added is, so if we, there are really overwhelmed wards as of now, so that overly populated wards are also there, and there are no space for even for a dry waste collection centers, and also there has been like opposing by the citizens for the dry waste collection center. It is not a recent thing, but still it is from way back. When if the resident sees the dry waste collection center, they actually say that it is a waste. Because they didn't know. But and also to say that installing a incinerator at a ward level, division level will not work.
Nobody wants a dry waste collection.
Yeah, they already face the impact of not being wanted in the neighborhood.
Right. I think we're done with the questions here, Sobia. I guess if there are any more questions, they can write into us and maybe we can answer them.
Great. Thank you so much. So you can write to us. You can head over. We will be putting a recording of the session as well. You can write to us at contactus.mal@gmail.com. Our website is Malleshwaram Living Lab, where we will be putting a recording of this session. Thank you so much, everyone. It has been a long session, but I think an extremely insightful session. I think there were some answers that were clarified, but there were a lot more questions as well raised, which I think, as Pinky has suggested, it would be good for us to be connected as communities. There are people from multiple wards in this webinar today as well. It would be good for us to keep connected and share our stories and our experiences of what we are able to push in our own wards. That's it from us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining the session.
Thank you.